Electric Cafe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. Today's day number 22 in my 30 days focus of January for 2025 on 60s, 70s, and 80s electronic music, ambient music, new age music, and experimental. When I was choosing, which albums to sort of start out with, I kind of chose them at random. And as I started to go through all these albums, I was like, oh, maybe I should have picked some more important ones, or maybe I should have picked 30 really examples, but I kind of chose a random one, and some are okay albums, some are good, some are very good. This one is a great example of one that you would chose to to show the experimental side of 1970s electronic music. It's almost, I guess, if you think of experimental music or electronic music in the 60s and 70s, and even into the 80s, it would be almost it it behoove of me and it'd be crime if I didn't mention either Cluster or Conrad Schnitzler in general and review one of his albums. And so I picked Con. This is a 2011 reissue on CD that also includes a bonus track on there. The 30-minute track called Red Cassette, which I didn't include in the review. I just reviewed the original 5 tracks as it was in 1978. Um, Conrad passed away in 2011, sadly. Um, there's not too many avant-garde producers that are in his realm. There's only a handful that are as well respected as him. And obviously he was an early part of Tangerine Dream, and then he went made Cluster, and then reformed Cluster into a new Cluster, and then was super prolific through a solo career, and with just hundreds, if not thousands, of recordings that he did through that time up to literally days before he passed away in 2011. He was always recording, and so there's a lifetime's worth of music in his collection that is still kind of coming out and being released. And I figure I probably won't get a chance to review many of them, but if there was one album that I had to review, it was definitely Con. Peter Baumann from Tangerine Dream produced this album originally. I think when I think of the good of this album, I think the experimentalism and the sound sculpting is what, and really the sequencing of the sounds to form songs and is really like the strong suit of the album. And then of course the sounds themselves. It's almost like, I think sometimes in electronic music in the 70s or the early 70s, I feel like sequencing was in some ways a kind of groundbreaking, what I feel like is a groundbreaking technique. If you think of before of just playing notes and then you're playing notes, but if you're evolving tones and then if using effects on top of them so they morph into other layers and other moods and other tones and things like that, like I think that's like the true experimentalism in electronic music. And I don't think anybody maybe did that as well as Conrad Schnitzler did on this track on this album called Con. Just some of the sounds are just so alien for the time. I just can't imagine being in 1978 and hearing this for the first time. Um, and in some ways, it's strange how, or maybe ironic, that a lot of times electronic albums in the 70s almost sound more alien than albums that are new that are trying to sound alien, if that makes sense. There's something unique about the keyboards and sound modulars analog equipment from the 70s that give it so much personality that in some ways it sounds kind of a romantic. You have romantic feelings about it, um, but also there's like a timelessness about them that really lend itself towards um, feeling like you're getting more out of the sounds than just if they were done on newer equipment. Like there's so much character that they add to the sounds, and I think this does a great job of evolving those sounds and sculpting those sounds. But then the sounds themselves are so unique for the time. I feel like, um, yeah, just really, I really have nothing constructive to say about this album. I mean, I I I think if anything, it might be a little short. There's four songs on here. It's under it's roughly under 30 minutes. It's was it 16, 21, about 27 minutes. So it's a little short, but you know that happens a lot in the 70s with albums being 15 to 30 minutes on a side. That's nothing unusual, but so I do feel like if there's anything that it might be a little bit light on content, but the what you're getting there is you're getting a lot for your four tracks. I feel like the first track is called Electric Garden, which I think is a great name for it. How it sounds, it's kind of spacey sounds. It has zaps and kind of otherworldly sounds, a bit of percussion in there. Definitely feels and sounds very alien sounding. Towards the end, it sort of starts some experimental rhythms, and in some ways, it's kind of like an early form of techno. In some ways, um, I give it 3 and 3/4 stars. It's tied for my favorite with the second track, which is called Ballet Strategique. This one has a great dichotomy between the first and the second song. This one's a lot more warmer sounding. This one's more sequenced. I feel like there's like some celestial sort of chimes that make a pattern in the background, and the balance of the two things going on is so simple but so beautiful. I really almost wanted to give it more than 4 stars, but I settled at 3 and 3/4 stars just because it doesn't really go anywhere. But that doesn't take away from what it does do. It just, um, I think it's so simple that it's almost hard to give like a great score, but it's tied for my favorite track on here, and 3 and 3/4 stars is a really strong scoring for a song that generally doesn't do too much, But I just love the balance between both patterns that are going on, just really nice sounding. And again, it goes really well with the after the first song. First one's so dramatic, right? Builds up, and then the second track just kind of takes you to a perfect place. It seems like. Track number three is called Metal One. This one's much more menacing. It's more in the higher range. Lots of effects as well on the sounds. The last 50 seconds or so, it sort of morphs into a full blown sci-fi ending. Um, the last few cycles, it really kind of gets into a really cool sounding like darkness, which is really cool. I really like the last minute or so. I give it 3 and 1/4 stars. And then Black Nails, the last track, also 3 and 1/4 stars. This one's the most minimal, sparse track. It's kind of broken, a little bit eerie sounding. Sounds like a combination of different cycles of sounds and odd sounds, sort of like messaging each other. It almost has like some sort of alien Morse code kind of going on, like where it almost seems like they're sort of talking to each other. Around 4 minutes, the scale of the notes becomes a little bit more haunting. Um, I really feel like it kind of turns a little bit darker, a little bit more haunting sounding. I really like when the final part really kind of rounds itself out and kind of finishes. A really nice ending. And that's a really nice thing about this album is three of the four tracks, the tracks that really do something, they really end strongly and they really turn into other things and change their original sort of appearance and trajectory, I feel like. And then the only one that doesn't is the one that makes sense. The reason why it's not, because it's the more peaceful one. So I really feel like this album really kind of hits on a lot of different moods as well. You know, you have the anticipation of the first song, and the second song has sort of a peaceful, and then three is a little bit more menacing, and the fourth is a little bit more experimental. It just seems to really hit um, on all the different moods of electronic music in a very experimental way, and um, you know, it's just like it seems like a great balance of everything that you look for in 70s electronic music. Um, I had the stars as 17 and a half out of divided by five songs. Were there five songs? Oh, I forgot Zug. Uh, I forgot Zug in the middle. This one's a bit heavier, more dramatic. This one's another level on the overall production. I feel like it's more airy, a little bit dubby, kind of thinner sounding, but very cool. I give that one 3.5 stars. So 3.25 stars, 3.25 stars, 3.5, 3.25, 3.25. So really strong, consistent album. I have it 17.5 stars divided by five, which is a 3.5, which is somewhere around 80 out of 100. I gave it a couple extra points as well, just for the overall. Gave it an 83 out of 100. It's I really dub it an experimental classic of electronic music for the 1970s. It's that for me. It's up there as far as one of the best experimental albums in electronic music for the decade. I'm curious as I go if something will top this when it comes to 1970s um, music for me that are there's not really popular pop music related or rock music related. Like this is a great example of sound sculpting, experimentalism, and unique sounds for the time. Just a really awesome record. 83 out of 100, really strong score. I'm curious if you've ever heard it or if you have any opinions on it. This is Conrad Schnitzler's album called Ballet Stratique. I'm sorry, it's not called Con. It's called Ballet Stratique. I always think it's called Ballet Stratique in slash Con, but um, I guess maybe on the reissue they named it both. I thought it was just called Con. But anyways, great album, really great album. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on this album and what you would score it. All right, thanks so much.
Electric Cafe.